He's a multiple Emmy-winning sports reporter. His name is Jim Gray, and you've seen him at the biggest boxing matches, at the biggest sporting events for many of our lives. He's got a new book. I can't read it. It's called Talking to Goats. The stories. It's not about zoo animals. It's about the greatest athletes of all time. Jim's first interview, he was 18 years old, was Muhammad Ali, who was the biggest star in the world. He is now joining us live, and we appreciate that. All right, how'd you get Muhammad Ali at 18 years old? What's the secret sauce to that, Jimbo?
Hey, Colin, thanks for having me. Well, I was a sports intern for the ABC station in Denver, KBTV, and my internship expired, and they were converting from film to videotape. So all the union guys took the buyout, and so a bunch of people who didn't really have any idea what they were doing became videotape editors. I was in my edit room one morning very early getting ready for the draft, a Red Miller show. He was the Broncos coach. Lady named Sue Tews, the assignment editor, came running in. She said, Muhammad Ali's 2.5 hours early at the airport. Run out and get him. Well, Ali was getting ready to fight Spinks, and then he was going to fight a Denver Bronco named Lyle Alzado. Well, I'd never done an interview before, so I went into the weatherman's office, tried to find a coat and tie. Couldn't find anything. Went out to Stapleton International Airport, did the interview with Ali. After the first question, he said, "You're the one that's doing this interview?" And everybody started to laugh. Well, Colin, that just made me feel so much more comfortable because I had gone from nervous about interviewing the most visible and famous person on the planet to now they were laughing. But they weren't laughing at me. They were laughing to make me comfortable, the whole entourage. And so after the third or fourth question, he said, "You sound like the local Howard Cosell." Colin, that was the greatest compliment I had ever had in my life, and it gave me so much confidence. I took the interview back to the station. The news director was a man named Roger Ogden for ABC there. He looked at the tape, and he was with me for about 45 minutes. And he looked at it again, and he said, "We're going to put you and this tape on the air. It's barely adequate." So I tell everybody I've been barely adequate ever since.
The only athlete that rivals him in terms of flair and greatness, Muhammad Ali, is Michael Jordan. They're both like great looking, stylish, thoughtful, smart. What was it like to interview Jordan?
He was always impeccable. I mean, I never once saw Michael have a bad public moment. He always was great. He'd pat every youngster on the head. When he'd walk out of the building, back when there was proximity, he'd sign autographs. He was nice to the security people. So interviewing him, Michael was just, easy. He was easy to talk to. He was easy to be around. I know his teammates in The Last Dance have a different portrayal, but in terms of how he was with me and with the media, he was great, and he was just terrific in all those years that we had him on NBC, and in the pregame meetings where he would come in and Marv or Ahmad would interview him. He was just a perfect gentleman, and then a few times that I got to be with him outside of the court in Barcelona, we played golf on a few occasions, and he was just great. There was nothing intimidating off the court about Michael Jordan.
What about, here's somebody that's interesting. Mike Tyson, you interviewed him after the bizarre ear-biting Evander experience. Now that had to be odd, right?
That was quite odd. And that was one that I knew when it was going to happen after he bit the ear that nothing like this would ever happen again. And, he left the ring and didn't talk in the ring, and we went back underneath. I was working with Showtime, where I still do the boxing, and David Dinkins, who is the producer, was in my ear, and he said, "See if you can get Don to get him to come out." So Don King brought him out. And Colin, it's the only time that I have ever seen actually somebody who is alive and I could see their skull. That's how deep over his eye the headbutt was and the wound that had opened. Wow. You could see the orbital bone in his skull. And that's why he felt he had to bite Evander Holyfield. That was the reasoning he had, that he had to retaliate. So we did the interview, and I took it in chronological order and asked him what had gone on. And finally, was that the proper response to bite his ear? And he answered the question. And I've always had tremendous respect and admiration for Mike Tyson, because at his worst moments, and he's had some bad, despicable moments, at his worst moments, Colin, he always had the wherewithal to stand there and answer the questions. He didn't hide behind some PR person. Yeah. He didn't come out with a statement 4 days later. He stood there and he took his medicine and he gave you a response. And that's very, very rare.
Were you surprised the pushback, I certainly was, the LeBron decision interview created? I still can't figure out why the nation imploded. I thought LeBron looked nervous and thoughtful. Were you shocked by kind of the national response and the anger at LeBron?
Yes, I was. And like Rich Paul has said to me and Maverick Carter, none of us had a crystal ball. None of us could foresee what went on there. And could we have been more sensitive to the fans in Cleveland? Absolutely. And could we have explained better that we were giving away millions upon millions of dollars, the biggest donation ever in the history of the Boys and Girls Club? Wow. Yes, we could have. Wow. So yes, we could have done better. But to make LeBron into a villain, it was wrong then, and it should have never occurred. And if you look at that show now and what the decision has become, that was the moment. It was the Curt Flood moment for this generation of player empowerment and of the birth, really, of communicating through social media and the rise of the Players Tribune and just how things go now. The reverberations of that show and the passage of time, the NBA players and all of sports, every player in sports owes a tremendous debt of gratitude to LeBron James.
Talking to GOATs. Now, we know you've done Tiger and we know you've done Brady, and I'm going to save those for people to buy the book because I want an autographed copy as well. But I got to ask you this. I remember interviewing Charles Barkley when I was a local reporter, and I knew he was going to be a star. He was so funny. He made fun of my shoes. He made fun of me. You just knew. You're like, that guy's going to be hysterical on TV. Is there anybody that's not a star that you interviewed and you just loved? You just went home and that maybe we wouldn't talk about, or maybe a lower star, or somebody perhaps you haven't interviewed you want to?
Well, Charles was great. And I say in the book that Charles was the most entertaining, most fun guy to be around. And we used to go up and down the Ramblas at night in Barcelona at the Olympics, and then hung out with him a tremendous amount. And Mike Tyson threatened to kill me on the air, and 45 seconds later, he kissed me on the cheek, and I'm still trying to figure out what's more disturbing. Charles Barkley kissed me on my cheek twice on national television, and for no apparent reason. At least Mike was trying to make up for threatening to kill me.
Yeah.
Charles did it, and I still don't know why he did it. But to answer your question, I mean, there's a lot of guys who I've walked away, and I thought, that's what a pleasant, really great guy. And, they're superstars too. I mean, Brady is as nice a guy and as cordial as anybody you'd ever want to meet. Wayne Gretzky, Julius Erving, Joe Namath. I don't know anybody who's more comfortable, who's been a bigger superstar, who forced a merger of a league and brought the AFL to this Super Bowl that we now see than Joe Namath. So, and a guy who was really understated, but who had just an incredible heart and really didn't seek the limelight or anything. I love spending time around Marvelous Marvin Hagler. He was really special, Colin.
Oh, yeah. My first job, I don't want to waste time here. My first job out of college was covering boxing. So instead of going to your usual first job in Midland, Texas, I got to cover Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, and I've always thought of it as the great career break. Now, I made about $8 an hour, and I lived on peanut brittle. But both of us started basically for free. The book is called Talking to Goats. Buy it. I want a copy. This is just great. Jim, absolute pleasure. The Emmy-winning sports reporter, Sportscaster of the Year in America in 1997. Great seeing you, and thanks for stopping by our show.
Colin, thanks for having me. Love your show. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon. Thanks again.
You bet. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.